Hello, Dr. Penoel, or shall I say hello, Dad?
Yes.
How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Still in Strasbourg, in the Euro capital, and you're still in the countryside, in the Drôme Valley, right?
Yes, it's a sunny day. It's almost springtime.
Oh, great. Still in lockdown, but I'm sure we're going to have a series of interesting talks. So you are specialized in medical aromatherapy, I would say the French way. And sometimes we have the feeling that there are two different schools. We have on the one hand, the French school, and on the other hand, the English school. Do you agree with this kind of vision? What are your views on that?
It's a very serious question.
A tough question, right? A tough question.
A tough question. And to understand this situation, we need to have a kind of a flashback into the past, into the history and the story of modern aromatherapy. As you know, Magali, René Maurice Gattefossé, in the year 1910, on the day his son was born, he had an accident in his lab. And oppositely to what he said in many books, because many books say the hand was burnt and he plunged his hands in a vat filled with lavender essential oil. This is what we should say now, fake news. No, the truth is that the burn evolved into a very serious infection, which turned out to be almost gangrena, and they're about to amputate, to cut off his hand. And it is only at that time that René Maurice Gattefossé had the intuition to use lavender essential oil. Whether it was a vat or not, this is not the point. But what is important to understand is that the power, the healing power of lavender essential oil was much stronger than just healing a hand that would just be burnt, because it was at an ultimate stage of infectious condition that the power of the essential oil did the healing. So it's much more significant in medical, and I should say also in surgical approach, than the initial fake story. So from this, you understand that the origin of this aromatherapy in France is really linked with medical and surgical conditions. Then in France, Gattefossé enabled to bring around him many people who were interested, doctors, surgeons, pharmacists, hence the evolution of French aromatherapy in the medical field. Besides, René Maurice Gattefossé himself was a chemist, who he was very scientifically oriented. What took place after is that there was a French doctor who married an Austrian lady, and they migrated to London. And this is the Marguerite Maurice story. And when she came to England and she settled in London with her husband, she brought more the holistic side of essential oils linked with massage and the scented approach of the essential oils. So much more the well-being side, and I would say even the spiritual side of those wonderful aromatic plants. So historically, we have this division, and what took place later on was that a man named Pierre Francôme really brought the true science of knowing aromatic plants, the botanical aspect, with all its accuracy, and then the knowledge of the chemistry of their aromatic secretion, and then the linking, the correlation between the chemical knowledge and the pharmacological applications of essential oils. And this is the time when myself, 43 years ago, I made the acquaintance of Pierre Francôme. I had been in contact with essential oils, I would say now more than 50 years ago, so they were already in my life. But when Pierre Francôme brought this true science of essential oils, it was like incredible discovery and the opening of a gateway to real applications of essential oils for medical conditions.
Okay,
At the
so
time,
yeah,
we-
so, yeah. So we have like you are showing the evolution of aromatherapy and showing that right from the beginning there is a kind of gap between the French approach and the English approach. The French approach was immediately more like medically oriented, whereas the English approach was more into massages and spirituality, although it is changing now, right?
yeah, we understand that, but we have to go on with the story.
Sorry,
So at the
just
time, Pierre
one more word, excuse me. You were jumping from Get Fossé to Pierre Francôme. Where do you place Dr. Jean Valnet?
Yeah, Dr. Jean Valnet, he created this school. In fact, it's not just essential oils. Dr. Jean Valnet, he was almost like a French doctor on the naturopathic side. He worked with plants, he works with essential oils, he worked with fruits and with vegetables and nutrition. So everything which is around natural health was in his field, which is exactly what I am. So I would say I'm more on the Valnet side. But as we are focusing on essential oils, I have to go on explaining the rest of the story. Pierre Francôme himself was very interested in natural medicine, and he was born in a family of herbalists. At the time, herbalists still existed in France. Now it's no longer the case, as it is the case in England, in America, you have herbalists, but no longer in France. But Pierre Francôme, he had this opening for natural medicine, and he had this very, I would say, intensive researcher state of mind, which is very, very important. At the time where most people, even in Jean Valnet school, they were not really interested in the accuracy of botanical knowledge and in chemistry. So this is the importance of Pierre Francôme in botanic, in chemistry, and then in medical applications. When I met him in the year 1977, so that's more than 43 years ago.
I wasn't quite born yet, right?
What?
I wasn't born yet, right?
Of course. It was just your brother David was born. He was just 1 year old.
That was a long time. Okay.
Yeah. And so we created this team together where all this research was doing on the fundamental understanding. I could apply this knowledge and I could bring the proof of the la vérité, the exactitude and the power of this research in medical conditions. At the time, he trained many people in Europe also, and especially a guy whose name is Kurt Schnobel. Here you have a book with a Kurt Schnobel name here. It's the book published in German, entitled Neue Aromatherapy.
I can't see, where can you see Kurt Schnobel written on it? I can't see it.
It's here.
Oh, right. Oh, right. Yes. Okay.
And you can recognize here this famous classification, which he took from Pierre Francôme teaching. And Kurt Schnobel, at the time, it was back in the year 1984, he said to me, he knew I wanted to leave France because of many reasons. He said, come with me in California. He had his visa for the States. And I said, no, I'm looking for Australia. Mm-hmm. So very strangely, he settled in California, in America. And we, and with you also, and your sister, and your brother, and your mother, we migrated to Adelaide and then to Melbourne. And the strange thing is that Kurt Schnobel in California, he trained a guy named Ron Guba. And then Ron Guba migrated in Australia. And I met Ron Guba in Australia, in Melbourne. And then Ron Guba, he took over my mission after the 2 years we have spent. And when we came back from Australia, immediately after, we started with Pierre Francombe to train all the aromatherapists, first in England. We started in London in September 87. Believe me, Magali, at the time, people in England were in total ignorance of the chemistry of essential oils. Even an essential oil so simple as rosewood, they ignored that the main molecule, 90% of it, was the linalool. So you see, the ignorance from the scientific point of view in the world of English aromatherapy was very deep. And we came to England many, many times. After that, we started, Coach Noble invited me to America, and we started to train all these people in America. All these people received their scientific knowledge from the French side, either by Coach Noble, by Ron Gouba, by myself, by Pierre Francombe, also Marcel Lavabre migrated from France to America. So at least by intellectual honesty to recognize the influence and the devotion of the French to bring the true science to the English-speaking world should be acknowledged, recognized, and possibly gratified. Okay.
That was like 40 years ago. Is this correct?
Yeah.
35 years ago.
And of course, I went to America many, 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 many times. I traveled all over the world, bringing this aspect, which is indeed more difficult, but which opens the way to application of essential oils in situations where their involvement is indispensable. Okay. To be able to bring relaxation is nice, and I have nothing against that. But when you are dealing with a situation where life or death is the question, you are not allowed to make the least mistake. So the approach in the French side is very strict, and it is necessary to build this knowledge, not just on the chemistry and the pharmacology, but also on the clinical practice. We in France have many, many, many doctors and pharmacists and biologists, official health professionals who have been involved in the use of essential oils. Whereas in countries like England, America, Australia now is a part, but mainly I say England, America, etc., their aromatherapy has nothing to do with the medical practice, even by law. When you say Lady Di, we say la Princess Diana, she has an aromatherapy session in the London clinic, it means that she's on a coach and she receives a massage. But if someone has an acute cystitis and urinates, let's say 30 times per day, and screaming of pain and having blood passing through their urine and pus, I mean, is it the right time to have this person lie on a couch and receive a massage? No. So there is no opposition between the French and the English side. It's just a question of in which context, in which circumstances are we using essential oils. I am the first one.
It is changing now. I would say more and more French people, when they resort to an aromatherapy session, it's more like a massage. And when you interview like people in the street, they've all heard of essential oils. And for them, it's, oh, it's nice fragrance, it's about massaging. And very few people, like, you know, I can see around the corner, they would know that there is a medical application. So you are talking from the viewpoint of an expert who has seen the evolution. But I would say today it's, you know, the distinction is much more fuzzy, I'd say.
Yeah, I know that nowadays with the intermingling of what takes place on this planet, the situation is new. However, if you go in any French pharmacy, I say a pharmacy, you see essential oils from Pure Essentiel, Pranarome, Floram, all the brands, they are present. I mean, if you go to a pharmacy in America, in England, it's not the situation. The fact that you have this involvement of pharmacists in Belgium, in France, in Switzerland, so the French-speaking side, really is the proof that there is a medical route very serious. You can buy capsules containing essential oils to treat infectious conditions, which are sold as nutritional supplements. But everyone knows that it is not for the vitamins, because there are no vitamins in essential oils and no minerals, just the power of essential oils as anti-infectious agents. So we are still in French-speaking countries connected to the medical and the pharmaceutical side, and step by step, the English influence is also coming in France. Although there is no profession of aromatherapist with a diploma in France, as it is the case in most other countries.
Okay. So we were saying right from the beginning, there is a kind of distinction between those two approaches, but now it is evolving, right? It is changing. I mean, the English-speaking side is getting more and more into testing, the molecules and going on under the microscope and having evidence-based medicine. So things are changing, right?
Yeah, but one thing I need to point out very clearly and very strongly is the following one. Thousands of scientific researches take place in many universities, but it is just at the stage of what we could call on a cell, on a tissue, on an animal. But we, from the French-speaking side, I mean France, Belgium, and Switzerland, we are dealing with patients in a medical way. And this gives us a step over the thousands of studies made at the university, because in the end, what is important is the clinical result. And whenever there is an opposition between what we know in a scientific aspect and what we state in a medical condition, it is the result of the medical condition, what you obtain, which has the upper hand over the pure scientific university study. You understand this point?
Is there a real difference between what I can observe in the lab and when I apply it in like living conditions as a medical doctor? Is there a real difference? And if this is the case, do you have an example to share with us?
Of course, you understand that a cell is a level, or tissue is a level, even a piece of an organ is one level, and the whole human being is a different universe. And I would say this is the mystery of life itself. An essential oil is the result of an extremely highly evolved being on this planet. We call it an aromatic plant. A human being is also an evolved with a psyche, with a nervous system, with a glandular system. So in the end, when we deal with a patient, we are dealing with all these aspects, and not just a virus, a bacteria, a hormonal imbalance, or whatever it is. So examples, I mean, plenty of them. And in the end, the clinical statement shows us that there is something which exists in reality, even we don't have the full explanation in theory, or even if it is in contradiction with what we cannot prove in theory, the clinical proof, as they say in England, the proof is in the cake, and the cake is the human person.
Okay. Okay, so thanks for this.
Sometimes you have an essential oil that you can test on a petri dish, and the result you have in the human body is not the same, because in most cases, you are not treating just a wound. If you treat an infected wound externally, okay, you can transpose what you see on the petri dish to the wound. But in most cases, we are dealing with internal infections, with the immune system, with all the other influences, and we are dealing in a systemic way, because in France, we use essential oils internally. You know that the rules in the English-speaking countries is forbidden to use by mouth, forbidden to use it neat on the skin, highly diluted, and we are using essential oils by mouth. We can use them neat on the skin, even in large quantities when it is required, like in viral conditions or serious bacterial infections. So we are dealing with different universes. I am the first to say that I admire the English approach, and I wish one day we could have real aromatherapists trained in the English way working in France. It's not quite the case now, but I think it will come. However, when I am dealing with medical conditions, if I were obliged to stick to no intake by mouth and only highly diluted massage, I mean, my medical work would be a nonsense. This is obvious for everyone, you know.
What you're saying basically is the theme that you are developing, which is called the aromatic algorithm. It's not about saying you have to use it neat or diluted. It is for children, not for children. It's all about putting into context. And if you can put it into context with the right algorithm, is it acute, is it chronic, then you can find the shortest way to get the best results. So first of all, you need to be trained. Once you're trained, you can find the right answers and not just abide by some rules like the do's and the don'ts. So basically you are telling us, go into training, think for yourself, and then you will be able to find the right options. So the aromatic algorithm is your next book, right?
Yes, algorithm is not taken in the sense of the big data manipulation, of course. On the strict sense, if I want to go from Paris to Rome, or if I want to go from New York, Washington, I don't have to go to a different trajectoire, pathway. I take the direct pathway. Okay? And I understand that when you are dealing with emotional conditions, the English approach, what I would say the more subtle approach, is fantastic. However, this emotional imbalance can be linked, as you know, Magali, to an imbalance in your intestinal microbiota. And the challenge is to enable essential oils to give their best possibilities. Being able at the same time to bring purification in the intestinal microbiota through the internal intake of essential oils, and in parallel and in a complementary way to give a massage of the whole person, and why not using the olfactive approach, this is where you can obtain the best results. You go deep to the root, you work on the energies, you work on the psyche, and the beauty of essential oils. It's not to say we the French are the best and they don't have the truth, or the English say we have the truth. No, is to bring all these approaches together in order to bring the best possible help contribution to a suffering person.
That was the theme of your webinar, which was conducted in English, which was called the metabolic pathways. And you're basically saying you can use all interfaces to bring what you call niguantropy. And niguantropy is the healing forces. So the olfactory route, the cutaneous route, and the oral route, and all those routes have to be linked together to get the best results. But obviously, you need to be trained. That's one of the major points.
Sure.
Okay.
So we're here to make peace, and to make an active peace where we are open to listen to each other, to create a dialogue, and to progress for the best. This is the way we have to follow.
Yeah, you were just showing, the what we call in French le référentiel hydroélectrique, the hydroelectric referential. I'm not sure how you call it in English, but this was not really well understood by the English-speaking world. So there was a whole course on how to understand it. Is it still valid? Is it not still valid? Could you just say maybe one or two words on this hydroelectric chart or card, however you call it?
First, from a strictly scientific point of view, this classification is valid. Okay. What we can discuss is how we can apply this classification in our work. So make the distinction, the scientific validity is there. When you classify all the 20 or 22 amino acids, you can take exactly the same classification, polar, non-polar, hydrophilic, hydrophobic, or you can say also positive and negative, electrically speaking, or neutral. So Here we are in pure chemistry. I would say this is the physical basis of chemistry. So this is valid. It has been proven by laboratory. In the English side, they made confusion between the Louis-Claude Vincent approach, which is the bioelectronic, totally different from this classification. So from the beginning, you see that they are speaking of things that they ignore. So let's first define the field, and let's understand that this is a contribution that is important in some aspects and not so important when you go into the more and more subtle part of essential oils. But from the pharmacological point of view, it is important to understand that this contribution can help us in our prescriptions. It's not all French aromatherapy, it's just a basis for better understanding as long as it is coupled with other approaches.
Can you give us an example? Could you give us an example when this hydroelectric cross is valid and is interesting to use in your clinical experience?
The polar and non-polar is important because you know that water is the basis of life, and to know that you have some aromatic molecules which are polar and very soluble. This can help you, for example, in treating urinary tract infections. Okay, we are dealing with urine. You can also understand that the non-polar molecules like the monoterpenes, they are very important if you want to bring what we call the dry energy in the lungs when you have a lot of fluid. And equally, if you look at the positive side, you know that most of the alcohols and the cinnamic aldehydes and the phenols, they are highly electropositive. And when you come close to the neutral, you are losing this impact on the microbial world. So here we are doing statements, whether we go from clinical to the molecules to clinical. We know that this is important for us in order to find the best possible algorithm to get the result we want in medical applications.
When we're losing,
the side is different.
When we're losing electropositivity or electronegativity, we have less impact on bacteria. And how do we know that?
We know that because we have, I would say, millions of cases that we have treated in our medical practice. If you look, let's say, after the World War II until now, all these thousands of French doctors and pharmacists who have worked, it represents millions of cases. We have also all the aromatograms, all the tests we have done on the bacteria in the lab.
That's what I was aiming at. I was looking for that. So aromatogram, that's something that other countries do not have, apart from France or Europe. What is aromatogram? What is it?
Exactly like antibiogram. You use essential oils on a little, little piece of English.
Yeah. I can imagine this little thing that you use to test your bacteria, right? Yeah. Not sure about the English term though.
If you see that there is a large circle around this imbued little piece of paper, it means that the bacteria cannot grow. Yeah. And if there is no circle around this little imbued piece of paper, it means that the bacteria is not inhibited.
That's something you can measure.
Yeah, you can measure the width of the circle. So this is something that you do with antibiotics, you do it with essential oils. Okay. And then you have to transpose it to the clinical situation because
another story.
The human body is not just a petri dish. And this is where the English approach can be interesting because sometimes they have results that are not explained strictly from these tests, but you have to consider all the other aspects because an infection in a human body is not something that take place on a petri dish.
Okay, I think we will need the aromatic algorithm, definitely. That's something we're looking at. Thank you very much, Dr. Penoel. Thank you very much, Dad. So is there anything you would like to add before we close this session? Anything?
Well, I wish that we can create a state of mind of cooperation and openness and respect for the sake of mankind and the planet. This is the heart of my message. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care. And we shall be on my channel very soon for other talks. Very interesting. Thank you so much, Dad. And have a great day. Thank you. Bye.